This is the Comics Alternative Kickstarter, discovering Loan from the Girl Zone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative Kickstarter. I'm Derek, one of the two guys with PhDs talking about comics, and the Kickstarter series has been on hiatus for a few weeks, primarily due to the holiday season. But we're back in the new year, and I want to begin again doing these Kickstarter conversations for comics-related projects on Kickstarter every Saturday. And this week, I have the pleasure of having on the show Ari S. Mulch. She has a Kickstarter project called Loan from the Girl Zone Comic Collection, collected works of Ari S. Mulch. Ari, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Derek.
You know, I guess the most logical place to start here is for me to ask you, what is Loan from the Girl Zone Comic Collection, and what is its genesis?
Well, it's pretty much just a collection of mini comics that I made starting in around summer of 2016. Up until just these past few months, I've been wanting to work on, have a proper book released, and now felt like a really good time. I just took a publishing class over at Minneapolis College of Art and Design, so I've kind of figured out how to kind of do that myself, and even talked with some artists that have ran really successful Kickstarter campaigns. And Kickstarter's having their Make 100 event thing going on that gave some pretty convenient attention to the project. So I figured now's, no time better than now, really.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you're currently attending the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and then for the past 2 years, you've been doing a series of mini-comics. Now, when you began doing the mini-comics, was this a result of a class or maybe classes you were taking at the school, or is this something you just did on your own, and then, let's say, your schoolwork, in certain ways, maybe supplemented this?
Well, I'm actually in the comic program there, so I'm doing a lot of comics and working with professors that are practicing comic artists that mainly do self-published work. So it kind of gave me the itch for it to want to do something longer than little comic strips. Mm-hmm. Most of these are things that I did on my own, but about 3 of them were actually class assignments.
Okay.
Yeah.
And had you started to put out mini comics before you began attending the Minneapolis College of Arts and Design, or did you start publishing, let's say, once you started coursework there?
Yeah, once I started there was when I started publishing. I would draw comics, but I never really did anything with them, and I didn't know much about publishing and didn't really realize that it's as simple as finding a Xerox machine and just running off a bunch of copies of a black and white comic. It doesn't have to be a huge, big affair. I have to make an entire book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of the things I notice on your Kickstarter page, you have an image where you include, I guess, sections of visuals from what I'm assuming are the various mini comics. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that struck me is the variation of style, because I'll tell you, I could look at one of those sections of your mini comics and then look at another. And if I didn't know they were by the same creator, I wouldn't know they were about the same creator. So I'm curious, do you make it a point of kind of varying your style depending on the story?
Oh, definitely. I try to be really conscious of the way that the materials that I use can impact and enhance the storytelling. Mm-hmm. And because these were made over about a 2-year period, there is a lot of just personal growth in them. I actually put them in the book in the order that they were made, so you can kind of see a progression of how my artwork has changed and what it can be.
So in this book that you're kickstarting, Loan from the Girl Zone, do you include everything chronologically as it was created?
Yeah, I don't include every single thing I created, but everything is in the order it was made. So the first 2 comics are from summer of 2016, and the last 2 are ones that I did finished barely even a month ago.
Okay. And I see also on your Kickstarter page, you have a list of some of the stories that you're going to be including, like Angie Has a Bad Day, Selfish, Coming Back to You, and there are a number of others. Mm-hmm. About how long will the finished book be, you think?
So right now, the page count that I sent to printers to get my estimate was 112. May give or take a little bit. I have all of the comics themselves laid out. I just have to do things like title page, dedications, and kind of extra materials that aren't the comics themselves. But they're a bit under 100 pages, or I think almost exactly 100 pages worth of comics in there.
Okay. I want to get back to your mini comics because I'm curious if people wanted to find those mini comics, how would you distribute? How would you make them available?
Oh, right now I have a, oh my gosh, what kind of store do I have now? I think Gumroad store. I just switched to selling all of my stuff through Gumroad. So a number of those are available in their original mini comic forms. I think there's really only one that isn't available because it was an unfinished graphic novel that I had to stop working on during the school year. And it's something I want to revisit, but I want to give it a little time to sort of marinate and brew in my mind before I do more with it.
Okay, so if people wanted to see Ari Mulch, let's say, in your original form, right, those mini-comics, they could go to Gumroad?
Yes, and hold on, I can even pull up the URL for that. It's just gumroad.com/Ari Mulch.
Okay, and that's ARIMULCH.
Yep.
So, I encourage our listeners to check that out. At the same time, don't get the mini comics at the expense of Loan from the Girl Zone.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, you can get both. Double dip. That'd be great.
Yeah. No, especially because one of them is actually, it's all traditional printmaking too, so it's like a handmade object. And it's actually one of the rewards for it. The I Found God in the Mosh Pit is all relief printed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a moment ago you mentioned something about an unfinished graphic novel, and something else that I found on your Kickstarter page that I thought was rather interesting is you mentioned that you're currently working on a long-form project. Is this that aforementioned unfinished graphic novel, or is this something else completely?
Oh, no, that's an entirely different thing, actually. I can talk about that a little bit if you want.
Sure, yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, so right now my big project that I've been working on for almost exactly a year now is a long-form fantasy comic called Lucretia's Midlife Crisis. That's about a middle-aged elf that, realizes their life sucks, so they try and change it, and it just kind of gets worse and worse.
Mm-hmm. And I see that pages of this are listed on the website Lucretia's midlifecrisis.tumblr.com. So you have a Tumblr page set up for this. Now, are you just publishing, a few pages here or there? You're not going to publish the whole thing on Tumblr, are you?
I haven't really decided yet. A lot of that depends on what the final form of it will be. So far, I've been physically publishing it in chapters.
Okay.
And I'm working on chapter 2 right now. And I had been posting pages every week, but then I realized that webcomic format wasn't necessarily best suited to the story because, really webcomics, you have to have something happening every single page because it's the only thing people are going to see that week. I realized that wasn't really working for what I was doing. So I would like to just have it all online. I really care about people just seeing my stuff first and foremost. And then, using the attention that it gets from people going, oh, I've read this online before, to then buy the individual chapters of it, and eventually I'd like to kickstart the full book once it's done.
I think that's really smart. I didn't realize until we were talking just now that Lucretia's Midlife Crisis is actually, I guess you could call it a webcomic based on Tumblr. And, recent comics publication is littered with examples of creators whose project starts off as a webcomic and then it's published in hard copy form, either, hardbound or paperback later on, either through, let's say, a major publisher like Dark Horse or IDW, and Image. I know they do a lot of webcomics, but also a lot of people, as you mentioned, kickstarted. So you have a webcomic and then you kickstart it. So you could have another kickstarting program, a Kickstarter campaign, and put out the book yourself.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a great model that, lets people build up a relationship with the work before they, commit to spending like $20 on a book. They go, oh, well, I've read this before. I know I like it. And then, people still want physical books, even though everything is online.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so getting back to the current Kickstarter campaign that you have going on, Loan from the Girl Zone. Let me see. You have a goal of $700.
Yes.
And you have, as of the time that you and I are recording this, which is the 9th of January, 24 more days to go. So there's plenty of time for our listeners to check out your campaign and back you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the reward levels. Tell us what you've decided are the various, especially the main reward levels you'd like for people to zero in on.
Yeah. The first kind of most basic one, it's like $5, and you get a PDF copy of the book, your name in the back of the book, nothing super special. And then the $15 reward is where you actually get the physical copy of the book. $25, you get it signed with like a little doodle from me inside of it. And once it's done, I'll send out, Kickstarter has post campaign surveys, so you can get people's shipping information and other information you might need for something like this. The $40 tier, I include a copy of the first chapter of Lucretia's Midlife Crisis plus a risograph print that I did, along with all of the same stuff from before. So that's one of the nice deals. And then the highest one is $75. That includes the signed book and all of that. And then a limited edition copy of the original I Found God in the Mosh Pit, which I only did a run of 25 copies of it, since it is a pretty involved process to make it. That's the real big one.
Tell me a little bit about I Found God in the Mosh Pit.
Yeah, it was a final for one of my classes this past semester, actually. I was taking a bookmaking class, and our final was just make a book, and I'd really been wanting to play around with incorporating traditional printmaking methods into my practice as a comic artist. So I thought it would be a good place to start with just a really short, relief printed comic, and just get a feel for how making comics translates into such a traditional art making method.
Okay. Now, the story I Found God in the Mosh Pit is going to be included in this collection, right? But you're saying that with the $75 level, you'll get one of the original handmade I Found God in the Mosh Pit.
Yep. Yeah, because it's just a reproduction in the book, just like a scan of one of the prints of it. But this will be the actual original print. You can get that nice oil-based ink smell with all of the mineral spirits. And it has like a hand-cut cover. So it's cut paper for the cover.
Several times during our conversation, you've highlighted the fact that not only do you make comics, but you also create the books or the pamphlets, whatever you want to call them, by hand, and you've emphasized or maybe underscored the tactileness, right? The tangibility, the feel, the smell of the comic. I really appreciate that, because it's all too easy, especially in this digital age, to get wrapped up in digital copies. And yes, they're more easily accessible. Yes, they're easier to store. Yes, you don't have to worry about running out of space with them, except maybe on your hard drive, depending on how many digital comics you have. At the same time, you kind of lose the physicality and the experience of not just reading a comic, but also the variety of ways in which different comics can be packaged and put together in print format. It could be anything from, let's say, the kind of paper that you have in the feel of it in a mini comic, to something much more, let's say, involved. I'm thinking of, let's say, Chris Ware's Building Stories, right? Where, you don't have that without the physical copy of whatever the hell you call that. Not a comic book, box O stories, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed by the fact that you do seem to emphasize the physicality, the tactile experience in your comics.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that matters to me a lot, and I think, there's nothing wrong with just focusing on the comic or the story itself, but I always enjoy it when I see other artists, be really mindful of the materials they're using and thinking about the experience of reading the book and not just the story itself.
Okay. So if our listeners want to find out about your current Kickstarter campaign, and I definitely think that they should learn more about this, they can go to Kickstarter and do a search for either Loan from the Girl Zone or Ari, A-R-I, Mulch, M-U-L-C-H.
Yep.
Now, if people wanted to find out about your work in a broader sense, right, not just this Kickstarter campaign, where can they go to see some of your work and learn more about what you do?
Oh, well, I'm active on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. Tumblr is sort of I only post art there, whereas Twitter and Instagram, you'll get, a whole bunch of other stuff too, but you can find me arimulch.tumblr.com, and then at Toxic Metal Expo on both Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, that's great. And I hope that our listeners will check you out, both your Kickstarter campaign and your Tumblr and other social media sites. So again, we have, as of this recording, 24 days to go. Make sure that you go to Kickstarter and check out Ari Mulch's Loan from the Girl Zone. Ari, it's been great talking with you, and good luck with this.
Yeah, thanks. It was great talking. Have a good one.
Yes, and we will be back next Saturday with another conversation with a comics-related Kickstarter campaign. Be sure to come back for that one.